So many enthusiasts and PC gamers think that AMD have got the market sewn up. Well, Z590 is upon us and it's time to have a look at this little beast. It's a mini ITX board, Z590-I Gaming Wi-Fi from ASUS. Let's do this. The iQOO H150i Elite Capellix from Corsair. Let's take a look. These LEDs, they're so bright. These Capellix LEDs, really are gonna outshine the competition. I should click the link in the description to find out more. So I am actually a firm advocate that Mini ITX is pretty much what most people need. I love the form factor. I love the fact that you get pretty much everything you need in a small package. Yes, I said it, small package. Now, before we actually look at the board, let's take a look at what we get inside. I don't generally do unboxings that often, but I kind of feel like this needs to be done. Let's entice you a little bit before Rocket Lake launches and we can actually see what the performance is all about. So, I am going to be a little bit critical here because I believe ASUS, you should stick to making motherboards and stop trying to make a fashion statement. That's why things like this, well, they need to go. So, we do have that. Sata port wise, we do have 4 cables. 2 of them are right angled. So more than enough for what the average enthusiast is gonna need. We do have a breakout cable as well, which looks like it's for USB to convert 1 port into 2 headers. We do get our M.2 screw and standoff. And we probably get another one in there as well. Yep, because there are 2 M.2 slots on here. And I'll go through what generation they are, what they're gonna work with, depending on the CPU, because you do have to remember on Z590, you can use 10th gen or the upcoming Rocket Lake 11th gen processors as well. Now, for anyone who's actually worked with a mini ITX board, you will know the frustrations of trying to connect your front panel headers, especially if you've got quite a large CPU cooler on there, high kind of profile memory, that sort of stuff. This is where this comes in. It's a little extension that you can plug all your front panel headers onto here, extends it out, and yeah, this just sits on your motherboard. So you can actually put that on first, and it just gives you that little bit of extra room, which I really like. Now, anyone who's kind of researched into Z590 will know that one of the key features of the chipset is having Wi-Fi 6E on there. So we do get a antenna for it. Admittedly, the routers are going to cost the absolute earth and everything, so if anyone's really going to be utilizing them speeds, who knows? But obviously this will work on, any form of Wi-Fi. It does come with some cable ties, formerly known as tweezers. Hopefully you guys kind of get the idea as to where that joke came from. And then we get the usual bump in here as well. So we do get a thank you for buying an ROG based product. We get a bunch of stickers because again, they're trying to make this into some kind of weird fashion accessory. You get a driver disc, which I honestly believe no one is ever going to use. And I think all motherboard manufacturers need to start ditching these because go onto the website, get the latest drivers from there. And we also get our user guide as well, which can actually be quite handy when you're trying to work out the layout of the board, especially when you're looking at Mini ITX, because they're trying to cram in so many features into such a small footprint. So the board itself is Mini ITX, and some people sort of love Mini ITX. Some people actually are craving for micro ATX. It just doesn't really seem to be a thing really much anymore. One thing I do have to do though, beautiful. I know you probably wanted it a little bit slower, but I thought I'd talk to you guys. So this is the board. So let's talk about what we actually have. First up, socket 1200. So LGA 1200, meaning it can accept the current, 10th gen processors, as well as the upcoming 11th gen Rocket Lake processors. To provide power to that, we do have a single 8-pin power connector, and this is a Pro Cool 2 connector, and I still stand by it. It's the worst name of any component anyone has ever done. Pro Cool 2. No, I don't like it. Either way, it means that it has solid pins on there. It does have a 10-phase design, so it's an 8+2. If you want to find out more about that, we've got lots of information on eTeknix.com. Basically, how many phases are provided to the CPU part of it, the SoC, and also the iGPU, which we'll talk about because this has got HDMI on here as well. Now, in terms of memory support, you will find with Mini ITX boards, they only have generally 2 slots on there, same with this one. But it can accept up to 64 gig on this particular board and speeds of up to 5,133 megahertz when overclocked. Now, you are going to struggle there if you're after 64 gig of 5,133 megahertz memory, because generally you kind of have to go with the larger capacity or the higher speed. It's really hard to get that sweet spot of both. But for the average consumer, enthusiast, PC gamer out there, probably 32 gig across 2 16 gig modules at 3600 megahertz is going to be more than enough for you. Now, when it comes to USB, this board actually does have quite a lot. Obviously, we have that breakout cable, meaning that the USB header that's down here can break out into two. We have a Type-C connector here and also a USB 3.1 header as well. So if you are looking at putting this in a case, not that I think any cases out there have this much functionality, you could actually have up to 5 USB ports on the front of your case. Now, in terms of cooling on the board, you will find that it's pretty ample for a board of its size. You have a little bit up here which kind of merges in with a heat pipe underneath the rear I/O, which is all built in, no I/O shield needed, and that then stems down into the M.2 stack, which actually has multiple purposes. Firstly, it has 2 M.2 slots on there, the first being PCI Express 4.0 if you're using a Rocket Lake processor. If you're using 10th gen, sadly it's only going to be PCI Express 3.0. But again, for the average consumer, this is going to be more than enough. Underneath it, you do have the second slot, which is just PCI Express 3.0 and SATA-based M.2 drives. But you do have some other connectors here, like an addressable RGB header, the USB and front panel stuff as well. So quite nice to sort of have that, I guess, 3D'd onto the board. Hopefully you kind of get what I mean by that. Now, if you're not rocking an M.2 drive, you do have 4 SATA ports on here. So if you've got a large hard drive with all your games on it, you're going to be covered there as well. Being Mini-ITX, a single X16 slot, and that is pretty much it. I mean, you have a standard RGB header up here. You've got 2 fan headers up here. There's a few kind of other little bits and bobs here, there and everywhere, but nothing really too over the top. Where it does get interesting is on the rear I/O. So before I actually say what's on the rear I/O, I'm gonna have to take a deep breath. We have a single Thunderbolt 4 port, a USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 Type-C port, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 port, a USB 3.2 Gen 1 port, and 4 USB 2.0 ports. So pretty much all of the USBs you could ever want or need. And that was a mouthful to get out, I've got to admit. We also have a single HDMI 2.0 port, because as I mentioned, if you're using this in conjunction with a processor that has an iGPU, away you go. An Intel 2.5G Ethernet port, and our typical audio jacks, which include a mic in, input in, and input out ports. So what do I think? Well, there's no doubt the hardware on this board is going to give us some features and performance that I guess we're all craving from Intel at the moment. While Intel is still on the 14nm process with their 11th gen CPUs, ASUS, I kind of feel like they're doing everything they can to make use of the newer features, such as PCI Express 4.0, which in theory should offer users the most for their money as time goes on. The board, in my opinion, looks great too, and I'm a pretty big advocate, as I mentioned, of small form factor boards, and who knows, maybe we'll do a build using this board, so let me know if you want to see that in the comments section below. I'm also actually pretty excited about what 11th gen Rocket Lake can bring, and more importantly, how it compares to what AMD are doing. And we do also have a bunch of other boards, so if you like these little previews and unboxings, let me know and we can definitely start looking at more of them before we can put the CPU in and see exactly what they can do from a performance aspect. Other than that, that's pretty much it. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you did, you know exactly what to do, and let me also know. Are you looking forward to the new CPUs and Z590 as a platform, or are you kind of holding out for the next one, which is going to be Alder Lake S with DDR5? So there we have it. I'll see you in the next one, guys. See you later. Bye-bye. So many enthusiasts and PC gamers think that ASUS, nope, that's wrong, AMD. But Z590 is upon us, and before Rocket Lake launches, I can't talk today.